There was a preschool teacher who had a class full of, 3 and 4-year-olds, preschool kids, and preschool teacher was teaching them about freedom and said, we live in a great country, and the best part of it is that we are all free. And there was a little boy that jumped up, raised his hand, and said, "I'm not free, I'm 4." Okay? So whatever your age, we won't argue. You are free, all right? Get to be free all your life. I want to talk about freedom. Freedom is a big subject, I believe, far-reaching, encompasses many things. Every person wants it, wants to experience it, and when we begin to explore really the word freedom and what it means, I find that it isn't always easy to pin down, really. Freedom is not defined the same for every individual. Depending on the person, depending on the situation that they may be facing, freedom can mean lots of different things. For the person who is having financial trouble and struggles, with not having money, freedom can look like having money. And for the person who basically has money coming in to take care of their needs, freedom can look like more money or more of anything. Because typically we think if we have more of something, it's always better. For the person who doesn't have a job or isn't employed, freedom looks like having a job so that the things that they need can be attained. And then yet a person who is rather miserable and unhappy with their job, to them, freedom is being out of that job and hopefully moving into another one, of course, that would be more appealing to them. So for the person that finds themselves somehow extremely unhappy or some degree of unhappiness, freedom was always going to look like getting away from something that the mind is telling us is the source of our unhappiness, the thing that is restricting us in some way. So that could be any external thing. It could be, as we say, employment. It could be a relationship. It could be a marriage. It could be a business partnership. It could be a residence. Who knows? But some kind of a problem. And for the person who is obviously facing an illness, a health challenge, then freedom looks like return to health and wholeness for them, a healing. For the person who is dealing with addiction, then freedom looks like basically realizing recovery in their life and being able to go forward. So spirituality is really our destiny, Spirituality in terms of demonstrating and living an experience of freedom that comes from within. We all want to be free. We're all meant to be free. And God's will for us is freedom. And perhaps it's nothing that is more valued in a person's life when they really stop and think about it than freedom. Because anywhere and anyhow that a person is totally in some kind of conflict, whether it's conflict with the external or the internal world, we want to be free of that so that we can be happy and be resonating in a freedom frequency is what I like to call it. And so, wars have been fought and waged for thousands of years. People have given their lives to freedom. So things have happened externally, but also internally. People have, as I say, gone through many a conflict, waged their own war with their own soul on an internal level, and searching for something that would take them into a greater sense of happiness, some greater good. Sometimes they don't even know what they're searching for, but they know they don't want to feel the way they have felt for a long time inside with the conflict. And so freedom really has many faces. And as I say, God is about freedom, and if God be for us, who can be against us? There's a wonderful verse that I like to return to again and again that says it very simply and very powerfully, and that is actually found in 2 Corinthians, in which it states, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. It's that simple, It's basically saying that whenever we let Spirit in, whenever we allow ourselves to, have an intimate connection to the divine, then there's freedom. And then one is taken really toward freedom, out of that sense of connection. One is taken toward truth. One is taken, there's a way that is shown. Somehow or another, you find your way through whatever it is that you're up against. There's this great story in the book of Acts, and it really talks about even kind of like the supernatural happenings where angels can be sent. You may see them, you may not see them, but there are just a multitude of ways in which God can act to help and move us from our own, the prisons of our world. But this is about Peter. And Herod was the king at the time, and Herod was really clamping down in violent ways on some of the leaders of the church. And he had taken the life of James, killed him with the sword. And he went after Peter now, and Peter he had arrested and put in prison. And it was only a matter of time before Peter's life would be taken from him. And it states that every measure was made to secure him. To make sure that he didn't get away. And the passage there talks about there being 4 squads of soldiers that were assigned to guard him. It talks about being bound in chains. It talks about numerous additional sentries that were guarding the door in various places of the prison. And it also talks about the fact that at the same time this was all happening, there was a group that was in earnest prayer in his behalf. They knew Peter was there, and they were praying that somehow he find a way beyond this situation. And so on the very night that the King Herod was to call for him, and we assume, be taking his life, on that very evening, he was sleeping between 2 soldiers. And there was an angel that appeared. And it talks about this in the passage. And there was a light that shone into the cell. And the angel woke Peter up and said, "Get up quickly." And in that next moment, the chains fell off of him. He was told to dress, and he was told to then follow the angel, which he did. But he thought, Peter thought he was having a dream. He thought he was having a vision. He didn't think it was real, but he followed the orders. And they passed by one set of guards. They passed by a second set of guards. This is all in the passage to really show you what they went through. And then they came to the gate of the city. And it says that the gate of the city actually opened of its own accord. It just happened to open somehow. Okay? And when he had passed through the gate to the city, then the angel left him. And he went to the house of Mary. But Peter said right after that, he said, "Now I know for certain that the Lord has sent his angel and has delivered me from the hand of Herod." Now I know for certain, I know for certain that there is a presence and a power, that the prayer, the statement of the whole story is, number one, prayer works, which means, number one, you need to make the connection. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. You have to make that connection. There's a power in prayer. But it's also saying that the nature of the divine is that it will be there to assist you. If you have a deep and intimate connection with the presence, it's there to see you free. The truth of God is marching on. And God's truth is marching on in your life. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how difficult the situation is. It doesn't matter what you're up against. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there will be freedom. And what it says to me is actually that our declaration of oneness with God becomes our declaration of independence, our declaration of freedom. We could say that where there is a consciousness of oneness is where there is freedom, a consciousness of oneness with God. So, to me also, freedom is like a paradox. We come into this world, and it's a world of form, a three-dimensional world. And we come into it so that we can become free of it. You know what I'm saying? To rise above it, to get beyond it, to not be intimidated by it, to not have circumstances and situations and the conditions of form to dictate to you, to take you off center, to take you out of who you are. It's an interesting dilemma. We come into this world in that sort of way to become free of it and to move back into our connection with the formless. The formless is where all the power is. The world of form is always shifting and changing. It's energy vibrating at different rates, as science and physics have told us. But we're to connect with this realm of the formless. And as human beings, we can't then therefore become too attached to anything, because anything can be here today and gone tomorrow in form. You just consider the fires that are going on in Colorado now. People are up against, losing their homes, all their belongings, and that's a very painful thing. But they are also appreciative that they have their life, they have their family, and that they can go on, and they can create again the forms, one way or another. They'll be shown. But things come and go, And there's even some people in our congregation that they lost their home to fires. It was the wiring, and they weren't there. They were away at the time and burned down to the ground, basically, and they have gone through the whole experience of having it rebuilt in their life. It happens even to our own congregants. A person is forced basically to detach from what was and to be able to accept what is, and that helps them then to rise above the circumstances by touching in and tapping into the formless. But one has to be able to detach from what was and accept what is, to be able to mount really a rally and have your energies now begin to take you on from there. And that happens at various levels and degrees in life as we bump up against things, as they change. Let's say that you have something that you're dealing with in the physical world that has you upset or anxious or worried or sad based on some set of circumstances that you can call the problem that you are facing. It could be, as we say, your work. It could be your health. It could be your finances. It could be relationships. It could be a loss in your life somehow. And on some level, it is possible to move beyond those circumstances mentally. You know that you can get to the other side. You can have moments where you're not stuck in it, that you can be free of it. It may not be easy, but you know that you can do it. Let's say that there is, you find a master of meditation or somebody that can help you and actually help you, go to a place where you're able to quiet your mind and able to basically move your thoughts away from focusing on the problem and onto a truth, onto God and a truth. That God's truth is able to march on in you. And so what happens is there's a sense of peace that can be restored. There's a knowing that you can be connected to something other than the problem, that you can get above it, you can get beyond it. We know that about ourselves. And so we have to ask ourselves, really, in any instance, well, what am I really up against here? Am I up against the situation? Am I up against the circumstance, the something out there? Or am I really up against my mind and the way my mind has framed this, or the fears it has taken me to, heading down the path? And so we often think that the only way also to be free of whatever the worry or the upset or the anxiety is for the circumstances to actually change. They have to change, they have to be better, they have to be different, they have to be what we want, But the truth is, and you know this truth, you can still be free, even if nothing changes. That possibility exists to you, that you can be free in the midst of whatever that is, that you have allowed to put you in the prison of your own anxieties, perhaps, if you want to call it that. And so, there's a wonderful book, many of you perhaps are familiar with it, that it speaks to me in terms of the point we're making here today, and that's Viktor Frankl, his book, Man's Search for Meaning. And Viktor Frankl was a renowned international psychiatrist that endured the horrors of death camps and concentration camps in Auschwitz. And while he was there and going through that, he basically studied the people around him and how they dealt with and how they reacted mentally to all the circumstances that they came up against. And he noticed how it varied from person to person. And in the preface of the book, it states, in the concentration camp, every circumstance conspires to make the prisoner lose his hold, lose his grip. All the familiar goals in life are snatched away. Everything that you had in your mind that you were going towards, they're all gone now, okay? And what alone remains is the last of human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude, outlook, frame of mind in the given set of circumstances you're facing. And Frankl, in his book, he's making the point and has the view that, there is that something within every man and every woman, which is the capacity to transcend his or her predicament and discover an adequate guiding truth. He is saying that God's truth is marching on, that there is a truth that you can embrace that will guide you through no matter what. And acceptance is the key here, because sometimes we have to accept what is in order to gather the resources to go on from there. And so, you may recall in Genesis, the story about Sodom and Gomorrah and how the angel warns Lot and his wife not to look back and not to stop anywhere in the valley. None of us need to stop in the valley, okay? Valleys are not good. Valleys are not good. Don't stop there and don't look back. Well, Lot's wife, as you know, looked back and she became, as the scriptures say, a pillar of salt. In other words, she was frozen in time. In other words, she got stuck in her yesterday. She was stuck in the past. It will freeze you if that's where you live. So Viktor Frankl says there was a tendency for the people in the concentration camp to look into the past, to help make the present, with all its horrors, less real. And he writes, but in robbing the present of its reality, there lay a certain danger. It became easy to overlook the opportunities to making something positive of camp life. Opportunities which really did exist. In other words, he said that the mind could actually still find something to focus on that was positive. Regarding our provisional existence as unreal was in itself an important factor in causing the prisoners to lose their hold on life. Everything, in a way, became pointless. Such people forget that often it is just such an exceptionally difficult external situation which gives man the opportunity to grow spiritually beyond himself, he writes. Instead of taking the camp's difficulties as a test of their inner strength, they did not take their life seriously and despised it as something of no consequence. They preferred to close their eyes and to live in the past. And he further wrote, most men in a concentration camp believed that the real opportunities of life had passed. Yet in reality, there was an opportunity and a challenge. One could make a victory of those experiences, turning life into an inner triumph, or one could ignore the challenge and simply vegetate, as did a majority of the prisoners. There was a man that shared with me after the early service. He said, "You really nailed me." He said, "I got to see that what I've been telling myself is my greatest years are over." How many people have said that inside? My best years are done. You see, there's different ways that we speak to ourselves and set ourselves back. And so Frankl makes it clear that even a concentration camp, even there were those who exhibited freedom, freedom from their circumstances. And no one said it was easy. Viktor Frankl didn't say it was easy, but he did say it was possible. He found it was possible, and it's an inner thing, an inner triumph. And Jesus, talked to us about freedom, and he said, if you continue in my word, if you continue to know these truths, if you continue to seek out the truth, you are then truly my disciples, and you will know then that the truth will make you free. You will then know that truth, and the truth will make you free. He didn't say, if you continue in my word and in my truth, only when it's easy. He didn't say that. He said, no, you got to continue in my truth when it's hard, it's difficult. Same way that he said it's easy to love those who love you. What reward is there in that? So sometimes we just have to, even as difficult as the thing may be, it's kind of like, there's still a place in me. There's still a place in me where I can be free. And the only way I can get there, really, is to connect with this Spirit, where the Spirit is. My oneness with the Spirit, the one source, I am free. So it doesn't matter how you find your way into the truth of God, or how you find your way into the truth about yourself, you know. We all have conflicts. We all have thoughts that we have about ourselves not being enough, our self-esteem issues, or various things where we reject ourselves, you know, and show up a particular way. We have to discover what needs to be corrected in us. I love the story about Mr. Klein. It's a story about this guy. He was sort of the Scrooge of his small town, Mr. Klein. And he was considered, well, he was experienced as selfish and eccentric, and kids poked fun of him. And one Sunday night he was walking down the street. It was a summer evening, and the windows were open, and he walks by the church, the local church there in this small town, and he heard them singing. And he was in a bad place. You know, he just was very discouraged, and he felt defeated in his life, and he was down on his life. He had no family, he had no friends, he was all alone. And as the congregation sang, he heard the lines from the hymn being sung, which said, "Saved by grace alone, this is my plea. Jesus died for all mankind, and Jesus died for me." Now, his hearing wasn't great, and so what he heard when they sang, "Jesus died for all mankind," he thought they were singing, "Jesus died for old man Klein." And he goes, "Why, that's me they're singing about." And he went into the church, they grabbed him, and he put his soul into his spiritual path, and his life turned around. He was on his way. The truth of God was marching on in his life. I will always remember that when it comes to freedom, there is basically things that we want to be free from in order that we can be free to. There's a free from and a free to. I want to be free from da-da-da-da-da, so I can be free to da-da-da-da-da. And so what are your free froms? You know, I want to be free from, what is it out there in the outer world that maybe you're wanting to be free from? You know, we've talked about some of them. But then there are the inner matters that you want to be free from. I want to be free from my fears. I want to be free from the guilt I carry. I want to be free from resentments, unforgiveness, the chasms I have with certain people or whatever, prejudice, whatever needs to be cleared. And the solution always is, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. You bring in that connection to the divine. The divine will tell you what needs to be corrected in you, out of that integrous sense of honesty with the divine. So, okay, we get free from, and then what's about the free to? Well, you know, there's so much we have that we can be free to do and to be and to have in this world. So much, you know. And so from the spiritual side, we're free to think. And that's no small thing. We have been free to think and direct the mind, you know, to the lows in the valley or to the highs, to the mountain peaks. And thought is creative. That has been proven. And therefore we're free. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. We're free to create with the divine. Either we can do it alone or we can do it in partnership. If we can do it with truth, truth will set us free. It's where we direct our mind. Nelson Mandela was in a South African prison for 27 years. Now, his body may have been in prison for 27 years, but his mind and his heart and his soul were not. He was not stuck in anger and resentment and self-pity. That man came out of there a beautiful soul. And what shone through was incredible in that man. And anyone who's seen him, been around him, heard him, beautiful soul. He didn't carry the past with him. You know, it was all new. The truth in him started marching on in a beautiful way, and his life and the impact that he had on people was wonderful. So, you know, free to love more, free to experience more joy, more bliss, you know, free to build a sense of faith like Peter, that I am certain that God is at work in my life. I can't explain it. Some of it's a mystery, but it's there. So for me, freedom is truly a state of consciousness, and there are times when I take myself away from freedom because I get wound up in, certain things that may make me worry or anxious or whatever. I'm human too, but the thing is to notice it and then come back and just realize that we're one with Spirit. The oneness with Spirit takes us into a feeling. Truly, freedom is an intangible. Freedom is a feeling that is linked to our oneness with the Source.